Chat, we're live. Chat. It says I've been live for a couple seconds now. Will it? I'm waiting until it shows my stuff. Okay, you know what? Chat. We are here. We are streaming. I'm just playing some nice calming music. To start off with, how are you doing, chat? I have no people watching it, but still, how you doing? Since I have a concurrent viewer, which I probably don't. Okay, so this is gonna be another one of those watching streams, so, and then I'm gonna probably do something else, where I just like watch stuff, so, yeah, it's gonna be cool. I'll wait until some more people join. If there's any concurrent viewers, we're gonna watch. Okay, we're gonna probably not have this on here. This is like one of my YouTubers that does like controversy stuff. You guys want to watch Vsauce? This is also a controversial YouTuber that I like to watch. He makes like videos about controversies. This person makes videos about like different movies. I should probably remove this from my here. Yeah, it's fine. Okay, what do you guys want to watch? I'm gonna reload this one to get some more video. Okay, this is my video. Whoa. Yo, it's my video. Wait, 2 people are watching. Hey, Dragon Rage, we are gonna react to stuff. We're reacting. The Colorful Tale soundtrack preview. Listen, what is this? It's by Lena Rain. Hello. Literally, look at this. This person produces Celeste soundtrack. They literally produce Pickstep. What is that video that they're playing? Okay. I mean, legend. What? I have a very weird, it's this one, Dane Pereira TikTok compilation. Perry the Tuck. What the fuck? I have Wolverset video. I'm gonna vote. What is this? Relaxing, more enjoyable on a weekend. I'll vote on Merg's. Say. So how much easier are Minecraft speed runs if you cheat? Very easy. I've cheated in a Minecraft speedrun before. I did not post it to the moderation team. I just made a fake speedrun, and it was really easy. Okay, you know what? We're gonna play the Ceave Gaming video again. Because I like Ceave Gaming. He makes videos I can actually react to as well.
Hello, you must be at your appointment. Your honey appointment.
Nintendo
I don't want
is
ASMR,
an unbelievably
please.
stubborn company. They're a company willing to take huge risks. A company willing to ignore all design trends of the current time and to go into the opposite direction. A company willing to reboot their most important franchises over and over again. Basically, they're a company that was, and still is, sometimes nuts enough to take a huge risk, to throw all proven to work concepts into the bin, only to start again from scratch.
No, I like the risky decisions. I like the big mistakes
Nintendo is
one
a
better.
fascinating company. They're probably the single most important company in the history of video gaming.
Actually, no, I want to do the, someone talks about Banjo-Kazooie. I like Banjo-Kazooie. I was gonna play
Bowser's
Banjo-Kazooie
Fury
music
is
at the
a
start.
really weird
instead of
pre-Mario
Apartment-
game, and the game is
Apartment 102.
definitely not without its problems. The whole thing is just a couple of hours long, 99% of the enemies and obstacles are recycled, the little original content is repeated over and over again, the Bowser's Fury mechanic gets old really fast, having shines tied to just standing in front of blocks.
Yeah, this
during
game was
Bowser's
really
Rage
fun.
is a really tedious mechanic. Whenever Bowser attacks, the game
This was
struggles
very
to even
fun, but it was
maintain a
also
healthy
very
10 frames
tedious.
per second. Some of the islands are so insubstantial that they didn't even get their own music tracks, and to top it all off, it also checks all the boxes of Nintendo's most annoying current design habits. The game has tons of problems, and in this video, we will talk about none of them. Because at the end of the day, I absolutely loved my time with Bowser's Fury. I think it is an amazing game, and much
I agree with everything you said there. It has a ton of problems to it, but it's just really fun. It's really fun, but it has so many problems. Like, everything just feels so reused in Bowser's Fury. I played through the game on the Switch. It was really fun. I played through it with my mom, which made the experience, like, way more, like, way funner than it would have been. And I know funner isn't a word. You cannot correct me on that. I don't care. And, yeah, but it's just a really great game. But, like, it has so many different issues. Like, the Bowser's Fury, like, everything you said there is really true. And I when I'm playing it, I did start getting sleepy because you have to run around everywhere. Everything gets repeated, basically. So the only times I really had fun are when I went to a new stage and did the first few cat shines. Well, the unique cat shines for that stage. And then everything else was pretty monotonous and made me sort of angry because it was just tedious and not very fun. But it was still fun. I still found the game fun.
Much more importantly, this little innocent-looking experimental title actually manages to do something remarkable. The game solves the 3D Mario paradox that Nintendo has been struggling with for decades. So today, we're going to take a deep dive into the 3D Mario paradox. We're going to discuss how Nintendo managed to pull off the impossible with Bowser's Fury, and what implications this might have for the future of the Mario franchise as a whole. So are you ready? Let's do this.
You know what I really want? Oh gosh, there's an ad in 5 seconds. This is a live stream. I don't want to give free advertising to people. I don't have YouTube Premium. Yeah, I'm poor. What do you want from me? Hey there, how you doing? Yeah, but I don't have YouTube advertising thing, and also I love new games, but I really want games to go back to, like, Nintendo 64 era. All of those games are so dear to my childhood and are just great. They're amazing games. And today's games are just like, we're gonna repeat the exact same thing we did last time, but it's more expensive and has a little bit more new stuff.
Utopia, you've cast your perfect team right down to the eyelashes and assigned them heroic and hilarious jobs. Now you're ready to take on the Dark Lord.
Did I just see a furry? Oh my god. We're gonna
So to understand how Bowser's Fury solves the unique problem of the 3D Mario series, we first have to take a look back at how the 3D Mario series evolved in order to establish a bit of fluff. So in 1996, Mario makes his first appearance in 3 dimensions with Super Mario 64. Mario 64 is one of the very first 3D games, and as such, the team has to solve tons of problems that devs nowadays simply don't have to worry about anymore. Since crafting stages was such a hassle back then,
this
the
is
team
the
only
video I
built
wanted to do.
15
Nintendo's got
different
the
and unique
obsession.
levels that Mario explores over and
This is
there
what
are
I was
many
looking for.
different ways to craft memorable gaming experiences. Some companies grew gigantic by focusing on competitive multiplayer. Some focus on crafting cinematic experiences. Others build gigantic exciting worlds to roleplay in. Some companies found an audience because their games allow for creative expression, like no others. And some just produce digital crack. But Nintendo
Digital crap.
never really cared too much about most of those things. Instead, Nintendo is famous for always putting play first, for being more concerned with the moment-to-moment gameplay than any other big player in the industry. And it is this approach that allowed them to craft revolutionary gaming experiences over and over and
Until Nintendo decided, hey, you know what's really cool? We only do moment-to-moment gameplay. Nothing else. We don't care if our level design is hard or bad or anything like. We don't care if we're removing the actual originality of franchises. If it's not moment-to-moment gameplay, it can go out of our game. Which is why Nintendo Metroidvanias don't exist anymore. Paper Mario's the way it is.
over
We
again.
watched a video of that yesterday.
Until very recently. But recently, I played through Nintendo's newest Mario adventure, Bowser's Fury, and while I overall really enjoyed my time with the game, it also kind of opened my eyes for a problem that many recent Nintendo games have. Many of Nintendo's recent titles are so obsessively putting gameplay over everything else that it actually starts to make their games worse. So today, we're going to take a deep dive
There's
into
no
this
creativity
problem.
in their
We're going
games
to take
anymore.
a look at how Nintendo crafted many brilliant games in the past using their gameplay-first approach. We will chat about how gameplay is only one of the many parts required to create a great game. And we will
Yes.
discuss how Nintendo brutally neglected important parts of Bowser's Fury because of their unhealthy obsession with gameplay. So you ready? Let's do this.
There's the Jinxie. Yo.
Eve to me is basically freedom. It's a giant open universe.
Super
hate that.
Mario 3D World is a remarkable game for many different reasons. The game burns through more ideas in an hour than most games do over their entire playtime. It features one of the most fun multiplayer modes I've ever played in any game. The whole thing goes much longer than one would expect, and most importantly, the game is simply a ton of fun from the very first stage to its second to last. The moment-to-moment gameplay in 3D World is just amazing. No matter what environment we jump through, what enemies we fight against, what challenges we have to survive, or how the game is trying to murder our poor plumber, it is always as pure, innocent fun as a game can possibly be. So it obviously
3D
takes a
World's a
lot of
great
different
game.
things to end up with a game that is as much fun as 3D World is. But let's just focus on one really fascinating aspect of its design. One aspect that shows through what great lengths Nintendo is actually willing to go to make sure that their games are as fun as possible during every second of gameplay. Pretty much every element in 3D World serves a gameplay purpose. There is basically nothing in the game that can't be interacted with in a meaningful way. If there is a tree, then it is never just there for decoration. We can always climb it. Sometimes it is used to hide a secret. Sometimes it hides a power-up. If there are bushes, they often contain coins and can always be burned down by a fire flower, fire power, power-up, fireball. If there is a baseball lying around, we can use it to murder some of Bowser's minions. The same is true for snowballs. If there is a couch standing around in the background, then it can fly and actually leads to a secret. If there is a mirror at the wall, then it hints towards an item. If there is a rabbit, then catching it is a gameplay objective. Heck, even if there is something as inconspicuous as a rock lying on the ground, then it is there to hint at a hidden block. 3D World is incredibly strict about this. If there is anything within the play area, even if it is just a rock on the ground, then this object has some use for gameplay. Nothing is just there to help to sell the atmosphere or to simply make the stage look prettier. And you know, at least in my opinion, it is great that 3D World
Yeah, it works double on that. It's really actually neat. I've played through the entirety of 3D World. It's really neat. Everything serves a purpose. Nothing doesn't. The only things that don't serve purposes are, I guess, what are they? I guess the only thing that doesn't serve purpose is the weird Luma guys and sometimes there. They
is
don't serve
designed like
purpose.
that. The game is this fast and hectic linear platformer that often introduces several new ideas per stage. The only reason we are intuitively able to understand a lot of esoteric concepts, like that we're supposed to ground pound in the middle of a flower circle, is because the game trains us that everything we notice actually serves a purpose. But if we think this through, then this has really interesting ramifications, because it means that every single object in the game was designed with the question, how does this serve the gameplay in mind? If something didn't add to the gameplay, then they did not include it. This is what I mean when I say that Nintendo always prioritizes gameplay first. They won't even put a stone texture onto the ground in 3D World if it doesn't enhance the gameplay in any meaningful way. This
Yeah.
razor sharp focus on gameplay is a huge part of what makes 3D World such a joy to play through, and it is one of the things I personally find really exceptional about the game. But I know what at least one of you, wonderful ladies and gentlemen watching, is currently thinking. Come on, of course everything in 3D World serves a gameplay purpose. It is a linear platformer. There is no real exploration or world building or storytelling going on. It's a linear jumpy game. The whole point of the game is to jumpy jump around. It doesn't try to be anything more than jumpy fun, and plus they only include elements that are fun to jumpy jump through. And you know, I don't necessarily disagree with you. Very contrarian, rhetorical person, but that's actually not the real point here. The real point here is that Nintendo did not only design 3D World like that. Actually, they're designing almost all their in-house developed games.
which is an issue. Like, Breath of the Wild is a great game. Everything in it is served to a purpose, and that's good. It's an open world game. If everything in it has a purpose to gameplay, then you can play the game for hours and hours while having tons more things to do. It's a great game, and I always explore it for the fun. But and then like, what is it? But then if you put that into a different game like Paper Mario, that's where things start to be an issue. And like you said yesterday when we watched the Paper Mario video, Paper Mario got kind of murdered by Nintendo from an RPG to nothing. It's kind of sad. They just kind of slaughtered Paper Mario, which makes me sad.
Things like that. Take Breath of the Wild, for
Yeah, Breath of the
example.
Wild.
Everything there serves a purpose. Every animal that runs around can be hunted. All the trees can be cut down. Each rock can do funny things. The grass can be ignited to create an updraft, and so on. Or take Super Mario Odyssey. Almost every element there is used for gameplay as well. From the rocks to the trees, from the fountains to the cactus. But those are just recent examples. We can actually already see this philosophy in far older games. It is in the original Luigi's Mansion, where we can interact with pretty much any object. It is in Wind Waker, where the dungeons only contain the most necessary elements for puzzle solving. There are traces of this philosophy in A Link to the Past. It is even present in 1988's Super Mario Bros. 3. It is basically how Nintendo approaches game design in a nutshell. They search for a really fun mechanic that lends itself to amazing moment-to-moment gameplay, and then they design their entire game around it. Every aspect, down to the point where even a couch in the background or a rock on the floor serve a gameplay purpose. And I love that they do this. There is no other big player in the industry that crafts games that are as innocent fun as Nintendo's are. Over the years, they crafted many truly fuzzyful games using this approach. They got better and better at it. Each console generation, each game that they developed, they got better at reducing their games down to their absolute purest form of play. They got ridiculously good at it.
Outplayed. Capture your best gaming moments. Let's say you had an awesome play.
Too good. Almost obsessive. Their brilliant approach from the past slowly turned into a poison, intoxicating their franchises, leaving many other aspects of their games sickly behind to rot. So we will soon come back to what exactly it is that Nintendo is messing up in my opinion, but before that we first have to establish a bit of necessary fluff. We have to talk about a trash-eating fish, and we have to chat about we have to have a chat about gardening. So welcome everyone to today's episode of Everything Gardening. Our topic today is the Hakoniwa garden. Hakoniwa is a Japanese term that means literally box garden or garden in a box. It is a Japanese style of gardening that became popular in the Edo and early Meiji periods. And interestingly enough, it shares a lot of similarities with bonsai gardening. This approach to gardening focuses on creating beautiful, miniaturized landscapes in small containers, often using tiny figures, buildings, bridges, and paths to create the illusion of intricately crafted landscapes and scenes. For those who peek into those mysterious gardens, it is often surprising to see the intricacies, the depth of layers, and the realism on display within these fuzziful, tiny scenes. So what the wiggler am I waffling about? So here's the thing. Everything that I just said is basically a one-to-one quote from an article that Bill Trinan, the senior product marketing manager of Nintendo of America, wrote back in 2018 on the Nintendo Treehouse Tumblr. Out of all places. So why is Nintendo's marketing manager waffling about Japanese gardening culture on the official Nintendo Treehouse Tumblr? A sentence I'd never thought I'd have to say, by the way. Well, in order to understand this little mystery, we first have to take another tiny detour. So this here is what I'd like to call a gameplay map. It shows a game...
Watch this. Here, I will tell you exactly what that gameplay map is. That is Super Mario Galaxies. That is in... I think it's... Is it not? It's not Slip Sand Galaxy. And I think it's Desert Dune Galaxy. It's this Desert Galaxy from Mario Galaxy 1. One of the stars, you go onto this planet with like a bunch of donuts holes in it that you can, and the goal is to flip a switch, run to the other side, and then run back to a platform to get the star. That's exactly what that is.
Scene of the game, but all the elements of the gameplay are only represented as single color blocks. Basically, the map shows us how the game would look like without any art assets and without particle effects and shaders and whatnot. Hooray! So here are 3 more of those made up gameplay maps.
This is Mario Galaxy 1's Sweet Sweet Galaxy. This is Toy Time Galaxy, the Cake Mission, and this is, what would that be? Either it's Desert Dune Galaxy or it's Multi-Molten Galaxy. Well, no. Yeah. I am. Watch. Oh, wait. Frig.
Screenshot of the game, then we can suddenly see that they all show something completely different. The first one shows a dry desert area filled with quicksand and dead dry bones. The second one shows a hot, burning volcano area featuring fire-themed obstacles. The third one is actually a cookie factory that our hopefully not hungry plumber has to survive.
Yo.
And the last one depicts Mario jumping on top of forks.
That's how much Mario Galaxy I
Stuck in a
played.
delicious but deadly dessert. If we only think in terms of gameplay, then all those challenges are incredibly similar. But they aren't, because they're coded to have a unique look and feel. And this is the thing with the Hakoniwa Gardens. See, what Trinan is talking about in his Tumblr post is that those Japanese mini gardens served as inspiration for the different worlds in Mario 64. They served as inspiration for the different kingdoms in Odyssey. And they serve as inspiration for all the different planetoids in Galaxy. Those gardens are miniature copies of real places, but they are much more mysterious, much more filled with wonder than the real thing ever would be. They are like an over-romanticized, super condensed version of something real. They are a lot of fun to look at least in my opinion, it makes a lot of sense to think about the environments in a Mario game in a similar way. Super Mario Galaxy took all the elements of the game that don't have anything
Mario
to do
Galaxy.
with the actual moment-to-moment gameplay. You know, the lightning, the particles, the music.
Hold up, I'm gonna put a coat on. I have the coat. You guys heard of stripping? This is not stripping. It's clothing. I said, listen to me put on a coat. Was that hot?
How the enemies are presented, the textures, how the bottomless pits are framed and whatnot, and then they put a coat on top of it. They coated everything to create an over-romanticized, condensed version of something real, similar to how Hakoniwa Gardens depict reality. It makes the game feel full of wonder and mystery. Galaxy's planetoids are truly fuzziful places in my opinion. They are a joy to look at. Places like the Toy Galaxy or the final volcano stage are some of my absolute favorite Nintendo stages of all time. But this is not because the gameplay in those stages is the best Mario ever played or anything. It is because those stages themselves are such wonderful and amazing places. They're a ton of fun to peek into while playing through them. Similar to how it is just fun to peek into a Hakoniwa garden.
I don't care about Clorox
This is how
wipes.
fast YouTube is with Brave. Notice how there's no pre-roll ads?
You're doing an ad saying.
So this here
It's
is
Clanker.
Clanker.
Hello.
Clanker is a waste deposit fish. You know, all the annoying trash that accumulates over time, it has to go somewhere. This is where good old boy Clanker comes in. He eats it. But you know, eating tons of trash isn't what scientists call a healthy diet. And
It's not.
thus, Clanker suffers from severe health problems. He suffers from toothache. So for anyone currently slightly confused, Clanker isn't a real world
From
waste deposit fish or
Banjo-Kazooie.
anything. Instead, Clanker is the center of a cavern stage, fittingly called Clanker's Cavern in the wonderful N64 game, Banjo and Kazooie. In Banjo and Kazooie, we play as
I
a
love
bear and a bird
Banjo-Kazooie.
duo on a dangerous mission to save Banjo's beautiful sister from the evil witch Grunty, who plans to steal her timeless beauty. We make our way through many different imaginative stages. We learn new, useful
The
skills.
funny thing is, 2D isn't even that like hot. Gruntilda is just like this bear here. I want to be as hot as that bear, bro. Just steal your sister's beauty. Your sister looks a lot nicer than you do. She's literally just steal Gruntilda's beauty. Steal the Minecraft world
The
record
terrifying
holder's beauty.
monsters get magically transformed into animals, and we
can go look at
many of
that.
the
You
fascinating
can go look
creatures
who up.
living in Grunty's
You
lair.
can go look up who that is so that you can.
One of them being Clanker.
Get the
One of the
joke.
objectives in the game is it to find a way to cure Clanker of his horrible toothache. So how does a bear and a bird perform dental work on a gigantic swimming waste deposit? One might ask. Well, by shooting eggs at the hurting teeth until the problem goes away. Obviously. So this here is Jinxie. Jinxie is a sphinx. So for anyone not familiar, sphinx are mythical creatures with the body of a lion but the head of a bear. Jinxie is another one of the inhabitants of Grunty's lair. He lives in Gobi's Valley.
I'm sure they
And
don't
as
have
it
a
turns
bear. I
out,
think they have a head of a
Jinxie
dog.
suffers from a health problem as well. Jinxie suffers from a terrible cold. His nose is stuffed.
Oh, wait, that's what a
Luckily, we're
Jinxie
here
is,
to
not a
help. So how does a
sphinx.
bird and a bear cure a sphinx from having a stuffed nose? Well, by shooting eggs at it, obviously. Hooray! So why are we talking about Clanker's teeth and Jinxie's nose? Well, here's the thing. Both of those objectives are really memorable parts of Banjo and Kazooie. Everything about
They're
them
not
is
very
just so
memorable.
silly and weird that they end up being extremely memorable. And that
No.
is what I find so interesting about them. Because gameplay-wise, both of those tasks are the exact same thing. We stand on a platform and shoot eggs at a target. Actually, almost every stage in Banjo and Kazooie has a shoot eggs at a target, but it never feels as if we're performing the same task over and over again. Banjo and Kazooie is extraordinarily great at coding the different gameplay objectives to feel like completely new and unique scenarios every time. Similar to how Galaxy disguises the different environments to feel unique, Banjo disguises its gameplay objectives. The game would never task us to find and retrieve a couple of random video game elements. Instead, it tasks us with helping a walrus captain retrieve his sunken treasure, or to save Christmas for a desperate ice bear family
It's
by
just so
tracking down
unique.
their lost Christmas presents. We don't just play a simple memory game in Banjo. Instead, we sing along with a bunch of frogs. We don't just have to ground pound random spots. Instead, we go onto an epic quest to dig up ancient pirate treasure. But most importantly, we don't just shoot eggs
And
at
abuse
targets.
Kazooie.
Instead, we cure different creatures of their health problems. The core gameplay objectives in Banjo and Kazooie are actually surprisingly simple. It is to find a bunch of things, to reach a place in time, to shoot some eggs, to
I'm
defeat some
present.
enemies, and so on. The moment-to-moment gameplay is often very similar, but the game goes out of its way to frame each and every objective to be a grandiose and unique task by putting an insane amount of effort into making each task feel unique. Banjo and Kazooie manages to be about much more than just its moment-to-moment gameplay.
Why are there so many advertisements?
It's time for a better pasta night. Zinbi pasta, made from 100% yellow peas.
Working with videos can be,
Pasta can be made out of peas?
luckily, Uni
It's
can
not a grain. That would be awful. Gluten-free pasta, but it's made out of the weirdest thing. The shrine and the scarecrow.
The shrines in Breath of the Wild are as cleanly designed as possible. Each shrine is a simple puzzle box without any unnecessary fluff added on top of it. There is nothing but the puzzles. Everything in the shrines either serves a purpose or it is incredibly understated. They're brilliantly fine-tuned to only be about the puzzle solving and the puzzle solving alone. And I personally think that the shrines are the weakest part of the incredible game that Breath of the
I
Wild
enjoy them.
otherwise is. Meanwhile, there are those scarecrow challenges in Super Mario Odyssey. You know, the little scarecrows that are scattered all over Odyssey's wonderful kingdoms. That start a quick timer challenge that has us jump over blocks or something. Those challenges make sure that there is a quick and fun platforming challenge hidden around every corner. They're easy to spot, they don't require any annoying tutorialization to be understood, and whenever we run into one of those, we're pretty much guaranteed to have fun for the next 30 seconds of our miserable lives. Yet I think that the scarecrows in Odyssey are symptomatic for one of the game's biggest problems. So what's the deal with the shrines and the scarecrows? Well, both are the antithesis of the things we just waffled about. The shrines in Breath of the Wild don't feel like exciting places full of wonder and mystery, like the wonderful Hakoniwa-inspired planetoids in Galaxy do.
Like,
Actually,
the reason that Nintendo is they're just putting throwing gameplay. That's what I'm 90% sure he's explaining. They're just throwing, because the shrines, they don't have the most interesting look. They look ancient and they look like that, but all of them basically look the exact same. So basically what he's saying is that they just look the exact same, and they look as bare bone and bland as they can be. Like Breath of the Wild tries, but it still looks bland. Right? It looks bland and bare bones, and it's just gameplay. That is what happens when you take gameplay when you take something and reduce it down to just a gameplay map. When you take something and reduce it just down to its gameplay. What is the most simple thing to do? Colored blocks. Colored blocks are a solid color. They don't require a ton of design. And you could just reuse the exact same asset over and over again and just stretch it out or something like that. It's super simple. Same thing with this. It's bare bone. It's more detailed, but it's plain. The assets are reusable. And so it allows you to reduce things just down to its gameplay. So
they don't feel like much at all. They're just blue, soulless video game places. They
Yeah.
aren't coded. They just confront us with a puzzle in its purest form. Breath of the Wild's shrines don't even try to feel like small replications of actual places. They want to be artificial puzzle playgrounds, and thus they end up feeling artificial. The same is true for the scarecrow challenges. They are the opposite of how Banjo and Kazooie codes its objectives. Banjo goes out of its way to make every task feel as important and unique as possible. Odyssey, on the other hand, Odyssey just copy and pastes the same artificial scarecrow over and over again. It is as if Nintendo just puts down signs that say, throw your cap if you're in the mood for a timing challenge. Those challenges often felt artificial to me while playing, and that may very well be because they are artificial.
Yeah.
There is nothing contextualizing them. There is nothing that sets this scarecrow apart from this one or that one. And it is not just the shrines or the scarecrows that
They're
are
not
like
unique.
that. Breath of the Wild and Mario Odyssey are both filled with such examples. Odyssey's challenge rooms are often artificial gameplay rooms that don't feature
I
any
hate the
thematic
challenge rooms.
coding, but are built out of colorful blocks floating in nothing. Breath of the Wild often repeats the exact same Korok seed puzzles, while using the exact same 20 physics objects for the entire game. Meanwhile, Odyssey does not only repeat the scarecrow challenges, but basically every objective in the entire game. We don't have to carry seeds to a pot once, but dozens of times. We don't have to dress up to get access to unique place once, but several times. We don't have to find Princess Peach once, but in every kingdom. We don't have to spot a flying taxi once, but dozens of times. And so on. There is no objective coding. They don't even try to frame those objectives to be something different.
That's what makes because I love the gameplay in the newer games, but they just don't. They just feel so bored. I'm so bored while playing them because they are boring. They're not trying. to be something unique. They're just trying to be pure fun. And that's so boring. It makes it not fun. It makes it soulless and boring, which is exactly what he's trying to say. My thoughts
Literally
also.
copy and paste them the same way they copy and paste the environments of the shrines. Just that it doesn't go unmentioned. There are lovingly crafted places in Breath of the Wild that explode with charm, and there are unique and wonderful objectives in Mario Odyssey. Those areas and tasks actually end up being the highlights of the game for me, but they are the exception rather than the rule. Most of the shrines aren't designed to be exciting places. Most of Odyssey's moons aren't designed to feel like unique challenges. Most of them are deliberately designed to be gamey. They're deliberately designed in this minimalist way. The shrines in Breath of the Wild and the challenge recycling in Mario Odyssey are, at least in my humble opinion, by far the weakest parts of those games.
He just said my humble opinion.
Both games are absolute masterpieces, but those areas are lacking nonetheless. So here's the truth. I honestly never cared too much about those flaws. Games are incredibly complex to develop, and I used to believe that they simply didn't have the development resources to craft unique coatings for everything. You know, I used to think that Nintendo would have loved to give all the shrines a different theme, that they would have been really happy if they were able to frame all the different Scarecrow challenges as different and exciting things, and so on. I believed that they simply weren't able to do so because of evil, unfun, real-life restrictions. That's what I used to believe, but I do know more. Which finally brings us.
Why is there no audio in that ad? Bowser is furry.
So here's another.
Oh no.
And there are many different ways to craft memorable.
I have to go back because I accidentally pushed the backspace button. Pop the flagpole like this. Bowser's furry. This is just a repeat. Just make they didn't do anything.
So here's another one of those purpose maps, one of those thingies that only show us the elements that are relevant for gameplay. This time we're looking at Bowser's Fury. At first glance, this map looks similar to those maps from Galaxy. There is ground to jump, there is an ouching surface, there is a death area below us, and so on. At first glance, it looks similar to the maps from Galaxy. But that's an illusion, because this little purpose map holds a secret. Because this silly little scribbling is able to tell us a lot about Nintendo's priorities when developing Bowser's Fury. Let's remove the map together and let's take a look. Did you notice it? There's basically no coating applied to the actual gameplay. The map that only shows gameplay relevant objects is almost identical to the actual game scene. And it is not just this island that looks like that. Every single island in Bowser's Fury is designed like that. All the areas in the game are unbelievably understated. The islands don't have this Hakoniwa-like quality anymore. They don't try to emulate mysterious places. They are just video game places in a video game without anything on top of them. When developing Bowser's Fury,
my favorite places were the Magnia Mountain and the ice area, because they felt like actual places. Everything else just felt
the team was in a really unique situation. Tons of the parts of the game were already finished before they even started, since Fury is built on top of 3D World. You know, the enemies are already designed and animated. They have access to all sorts of assets, like a complete set of desert textures. Everything required to build a ghost house, volcano tiles and whatnot, alongside the shaders, the particles and the weather effects needed to bring all those places to life. But the team didn't decide to coat the islands similar to how Galaxy coats its planetoids. Take the island with the invisible floor as an example. This isn't a ghost tower or a destroyed desert ruin or anything. It is just an empty, neutral island without any theming whatsoever. They didn't frame this Skate Island as a frozen winter wonderland. Instead, they built it out of blue video game concrete. They didn't coat Meow Mountain as a huge dangerous volcano. They built it to be a weird glowing block, and they didn't frame the rotating obstacle island as as I don't know, maybe
is
it's
the only-
rotating
maybe
sweets
I'm
and
out and know
cookies
what
over
it looks
deadly
like.
soup. Instead, they build it out of simple single
Mhm.
color blocks.
It just looks
The
like- it
team
looks
had
better
access
than
to
this.
all of 3D World's resources,
And I
yet
didn't
they
use that.
chose to go with extremely understated and simple environments. They basically designed the game along the same rules as Breath of the Wild designed its shrines, or as Odyssey its challenge rooms. They are as simple as possible, and at least according to my little conspiracy theory, they did so in order to prevent the environments from interfering with the gameplay. At the beginning of the video, we waffled about how Nintendo probably always asks the question, how does this serve the gameplay, before adding anything to their games. And I believe it is this exact question that led to the shrines in Breath of the Wild being so soulless. It is this question that led to challenge rooms in Odyssey that only consist of
Yeah, because why would you spend development resources making the area unique when you're only caring about the gameplay? People might stop to look at, wow, this area is so cool, and not pay attention to the gameplay. They might not have fun for some reason. But looking at the areas that they make craft is really fun. And they need to go back to Mario. One of the main reasons I like Mario Galaxy is because of how unique everything is. Everything is amazing and really fun, well crafted, and it looks awesome. And they all are unique.
single color
and
blocks,
that's exactly
and it
the
is
same
this
here, it's just
question
unique.
that led to them design the different islands in Fury without any environmental coating. Because if we're serious for a second and ask ourselves the question what the coating adds to the gameplay, then the surprising answer is nothing. It doesn't matter if we run on top of blue video game concrete or on top of a volcano. It doesn't make a difference for the moment-to-moment gameplay experience. Blue video game concrete is actually superior to video game volcano, because blue video game concrete is easier to recognize as a walkable surface than, let's say, cooling magma would be. But it is not just the environments that aren't coated in Bowser's Fury, it's the objectives as well. There is this one mission in the game that actually alienated me so much that it is honestly the whole reason this video even exists in the first place. It's this cat that lost her baby kitten. Poor cat. It is up to us to save Mommy Cat's day. And thus, we search for the kitten. We find the kitten. We grab the pussy like a president, and then we carry the kitten back to Mommy Cat. We're rewarded with a cat shine, and everyone lives happily ever after. Until the next island, where, would you believe it, what a coincidence, there is another cat mom looking for another 3 lost kittens. And that's not even the final cat mom, because the next island also features a sad mommy cat. This one actually managed to lose all 5 of her children at once. Mommy cat of the year. And thus I found myself carrying a kitten back to its mommy
the
for the
exact
9th
same
time
calico
in a single
kitten.
playthrough, thinking about
The
whether
exact
kitten mom
same
lost the
calico
same
kitten
5
model.
times in a row, or
I
5
was like, is this cat traveling to this next island, somehow making 2 more extra children and losing all of them
extremely similar
again?
looking
Because
kittens.
they only appear. The next cat only appears after you've finished the last cat mission.
And this
like,
was the
is it
exact
a
moment
new
when I
mom?
started to wonder, why the Wiggler didn't they code those objectives differently each time? You know, why didn't they replace one cat mom with a locked shrine that only opens up once we've found some keys? Why didn't they replace one cat with us searching for Captain Toad's lost backpack, or with looking for Princess Peach's missing heirloom, or with us retrieving Waluigi's lost Smash invitation, or whatever? We could even have all of those challenges be slightly different.
Waluigi's lost Smash invitation. Come on, like, that one, that's not a good one, because Waluigi never had a Smash invitation. We gotta understand
Each
that.
other.
Sakurai
Maybe we
would not
can't
give
run
him.
by carrying cats. Maybe
Sakurai
we
is
are on
too
a
stubborn.
timer
We
once
wish,
we pick up a
but
key.
Sakurai
Maybe
is
Captain
very,
Toad's backpack
very
is so heavy
stubborn.
that we can't jump while we carry it. You know, why didn't they at least try to frame those objectives as something different every time? And it is not just finding the kittens that is repeated several times with no modification. Almost every objective is copied and pasted several times. We don't have to catch Shadow Luigi once, but several times. There isn't one, but many shines hidden beneath blocks that only Bowser is able to destroy. There isn't one Plastic Coin challenge, but many. And what a lucky coincidence, there are even several Scarecrow-like challenges that spawn single-color video game blocks in
I like this game, but this is one of the reasons why I didn't like it. Just because of that.
To the world. It is the same as in Odyssey.
That's why I was kind of bored, like asleep, because everything is just repeated over and over again with no life to it.
Nintendo doesn't even try to frame the objectives as something different. They don't code their objectives anymore, the same way they don't code their environments. Which finally brings us to my little conspiracy theory. Because I believe the reason why the game is like that is because this is all that is left once we reduce the game down to only its moment-to-moment gameplay. The thing is, at first glance, there is nothing to be gained by framing the objectives differently. The actual task is always to carry something from A to B. So we might as well always have it be cats, because then we only have to introduce the idea once, and afterwards our silly player sees a cat and she knows, find a cat. There is no immediate benefit by having several coatings for the same objective called chase something, or reach something in time, or swim towards several specific points fast, or be here while Bowser spits fire. You know, from a gameplay perspective, it makes total sense to establish each task once and then to repeat it over and over again. The same way, it makes total sense to reduce the environment down to be as unobtrusive as possible if we design a puzzle shrine. But, and this is a gigantic but, video games aren't only about the moment-to-moment gameplay. Super Mario Galaxy is not only a beautiful game because the platforming is crisp and the levels are well designed. It is also a wonderful game because all the environments are realized in a beautiful way and evoke a feeling of mystery and wonder. Banjo and Kazooie is not only such a beloved classic because the challenges are fun to play through, but also simply because of how unique and creative each and every objective in the game is. But many of Nintendo's biggest recent titles neglect those aspects in favor of clear, simple and easy to understand design, focused on providing the best experience at the moment. And you know, they succeed in what they set out to do. Odyssey's repeated challenges, Breath of the Wild's shrines or Fury's understated islands all feel like a ton of fun to play through in the moment for a while, but they also start to become really stale and repetitive fast, and they make the games feel a bit artificial. Just to be clear, I loved my time with Odyssey, I loved my time with Breath of the Wild, and I loved my time with Bowser's Fury. All three are amazing games as far as I'm concerned, but something about those games always fell a bit off to me. It's kind of weird to put that into words, but those games didn't feel, fully flavored. They felt as if something was missing.
It's definitely not how you spell it, yeah. That's how you spell it. Okay.
For a long time, I really struggled to put my finger onto the exact problem. For a long time, until very recently. But it was standing in front of those rotating blocks in Fury that actually gave me an idea on what might be going on here. I believe Nintendo's games are slowly getting too video gamey. They start to feel like experiences that were produced in a lab to provide a quick hit of fun video game whenever we look for it. And it works, kind of, but at the same time, their games lost a bit of their soul. They don't feel like lovingly crafted places filled with crazy varied challenges anymore. Instead, they feel a bit flat and artificial. I honestly hope that Nintendo starts to reverse this recent trend and that they start to put more resources into stuff like objective coating and environmental design again. Because at least I really miss it to peek into those video game gardens that Nintendo used to grow. So here we have it, how Nintendo always puts gameplay first in their games to a point that every single object has to serve a gameplay purpose. How Galaxy's environments are designed to feel like mysterious miniature gardens. How Banjo and Kazooie
300%.
No, I think that might be it for the stream. Wait, what does this say? Now we'll watch a bit more.
For that in 2000 for this,
We'll
way
finish
too
this video.
expensive. But today I'm going to show you guys how to get all this stuff for a lot cheaper.
Such
Okay.
a fascinating little game, in my opinion. So today we're going onto a journey, starting with the design of the Topman tribe. We're not only going to discuss how those enemies might came to be and why Galaxy has such a unique premise, but we will also theorize about the economic restraints under which Galaxy was developed, how those restraints might have forced Nintendo to make a huge gamble, how this gamble paid off at first, and how it almost burned down. The Wii's legacy, years later. So you ready? Let's do this. The third star in the Battle Rock Galaxy is called Meet the Topman and Topmaniac, and this star is the perfect example to visualize something really interesting about Galaxy's gameplay. Our heroic plumber starts
I
his
love the
mission to
Battle Rock
take down
Galaxy.
the evil Battle Rock on top of a couple of platforms. We jump on top of
Evil
them, grab a
Battle
couple
Rock?
of blue stars to reach a
I
warp
think it's
star,
evil.
and then a roller coaster of a level is officially about to start. In chronological order, we ride a platform while dodging the worst kind of balls, the dangerous spiked ones. We meet a Topman for the very first time and have to solve a tiny puzzle. We infiltrate the dangerous Battle Rock, which consists of a cool and fun 2D platforming challenge where we switch gravity using gravity switches. We dodge dangerous laser circles, fight off another 2 Topman, and escape the evil Battle Rock just before everything explodes. But that's not even the end, because there is one final challenge left before we are finally rewarded with our pointy reward. We have to fight a
Topman.
boss battle against the most evil Topman
Oh my
of them all.
gosh.
Topmaniac, and that's the mission. Hooray! So what's so special about this
Topmaniac
stage?
is one
Well,
of the
you know,
easiest bosses
no
in the
two
entire
objectives are alike. The stages in Galaxy are usually thematically cohesive. You know, we might explore a volcano, switch between a fire and an ice galaxy, explore cosmic gardens, or fight our way through a huge floating toy box. But the different objectives that take place in those galaxies are as varied as it gets. Galaxy isn't built like 3D World,
Same
where
thing I was
each
talking about
stage
before.
introduces a new idea and then escalates it. Instead, in Galaxy, each new planetoid often introduces a new idea. And this is where this gets interesting, because Super Mario Galaxy barely ever needs to tutorialize something. There is no prompt that tells us how to damage the boss. No one explains to us how the Topman exactly works. There is no text box explaining to us that gravity switches switch gravity. No one mentions that we can jump off the lasers.
And no one needs to. Like, if I need a tutorial, if I'm playing like Dark Souls and I need a tutorial on how to press the A button to hit an enemy or something, or whatever the heck the attack button is in that game, then you failed at making a good game. That should not have to be
Circle Dude,
tutorialized.
and so on. The game throws new challenges over new challenges at us, and for some magical reason
Just give
we
us an
just
enemy and then we have to spam buttons.
know what to do, which kind of leaves us with a really interesting question. How do the designers intuitively teach us what to do?
Oh, we'll find out. So I can improve my
Introducing
game design
Fuse
skills.
TV, the richest video editor for gamers. Fuse TV makes it super easy to create awesome.
Skyward. Okay, I already know the thing of this game's. Galaxy succeeds if he's already talking about Galaxy succeeding and tutorializing without needing tutorials. Skyward Sword is known for having way too many tutorials. So, it's definitely that. Oh gosh, oops.
What to do? In his book, The Psychology of Everyday Things, Don Norman retells a really interesting observation that the British Railway made. Evil vandals were smashing in the reinforced glass panels used to shelter railroad passengers. Whenever they replaced the glass, the vandals simply destroyed it again. But then, something interesting happened. They started to use plywood instead of glass, and suddenly the vandals also stopped their smashing, even though destroying the plywood would have been as easy as breaking the glass. Instead, they started to scribble on top of it. What a plot twist. So this may sound like the most boring story ever, but it is actually surprisingly relevant for us today, and we will come back to this in a second. But first, we actually have to chatter about another concept from Norman's book, the concept of affordances in design. Imagine you're a princess in a mushroom-shaped kingdom on the way home from a relaxing day trip with your plumber, whom you're friend-zoning for over 3 decades now. You stand in front of the entrance to your castle. You really want to enter it. But suddenly, you realize that you forgot how. You stand in front of those doors, asking yourself a question as old as humanity itself. Do I have to push those doors, or do I have to pull them? Well, there is no way of knowing it.
This is quite stupid. What? Why would you care about this? What I was gonna say is, before he started saying this, is why would I need to, why would people, vandals, why would they, actually no, vandals, if they want to break the glass, yeah, they're probably gonna break the glass, but why replace it with plywood? Why not just not replace the glass? It's reinforced glass. If it hits a tree, it won't murder someone. But just, if vandals are abusing the glass, just don't replace the glass.
It just by looking at this door. And that's a classic example to explain what an affordance is. If we simply were to change the doorknob into a vertical bar, then everyone would intuitively understand that this door needs to be pushed. A horizontal bar affords pushing. Pull handles, like the ones drawers often have on the other hand, are obviously meant to be pulled. Barely anyone would push those. Yet basic knobs don't communicate whether the door has to be pushed or pulled, and therefore the design of the door doesn't convey how to correctly open it. So in case you're the type of person that pulls doors that needs to be pushed and pushes pull doors, don't worry, there is still a high chance that you are among the winning type. It's not on you, it is a design problem. It's an affordance problem, to be precise. An affordance is basically what an object invites us to do with it. A lightning switch invites us to flip it, a stool to sit on it, a fuzzy to hug it, and glass, well, glass affords smashing. Plywood, however, doesn't afford smashing. Plywood affords scribbling. Affordances are an extremely powerful unconscious thing. The simple fact that some materials invite us to use them in different ways is enough to completely change how vandals destroy them. And as it is with most powerful and unconscious psychological mechanisms, affordances are an extremely powerful tool in game design. And Galaxy is a game that is fantastic at using them. So here's what I mean. A design usually starts with a question and a blank piece of paper. Let's say we want to come up with a design for an enemy that Mario has to avoid until we jump on top of it. But once we jumped on top of it, Mario's objective changes from avoiding the enemy to spinning it into the dangerous borders of the arena. I wonder where this is heading. So how would we go about that? Well, one possible approach would be to search for things that afford all the features that we want our enemy to have, and then to simply design it along those affordances. For example, what is an object that affords spinning? Well, I'd say a spinner sounds like something most people would spin. Next, we need something that affords avoiding it. A sharp, fast, spinning, ouching razor blade sounds like it could do the job. But what do we use to signify that the borders of the arena are dangerous? Well, high voltage electrical beams sound like an option, because high voltage electrical beams are awesome. But those beams so far only really afford danger to the player. How do we explain that they are dangerous for our enemy as well? Well, what if our enemy is a machine? Because it is common knowledge that machines take damage when coming in contact with high voltage. You're probably already seeing where this is heading, but for the sake of completion, we still need to come up with something that affords jumping on top of it. A blinking red circle could do the trick, especially since we primed our naive players over the course of the game that this circle affords jumping. So let's put those different pieces together, and the result is Togepi. No, it's obviously Top Maniac. That's one of the tricks. How Galaxy gets away with so little tutorials. They incorporate real-world knowledge that everyone has in order to make us silly players intuitively grasp the design. We know that a spinner is used for spinning, that we should not jump on top of a spike, that we're supposed to avoid razor-sharp blades, and that electricity is dangerous for us and for machines. That's one of the core ways Galaxy teaches us its mechanics. Galaxy is this wonderful, fantastic journey that gets crazier and crazier the longer it goes on. and that effortlessly introduces all sorts of new ideas all the time,
Oh,
only
it's
to
got
drop
some-
them a second later. The design of the top man is so brilliant because it conveys how to use them and what to do with them by simply looking at one of those fellows. Galaxy is only able to be such a wild ride of
How did it
different
not get hit
ideas
by the-
because
hurt
the game
by
is
the spikes?
insanely careful to
It
make
bounced off
every
the
idea it
spikes.
has as simple to
Okay,
understand
that
as
top man
possible.
is
It is a
insane.
core necessity for Galaxy's premise to work, that the game is able to convey how a challenge works.
The only thing that I was not able to convey is if I go back, no, forward. This right here, I did not get this puzzle at all.
Second, we're faced with the challenge, and at least in my opinion,
I did
Galaxy
not
really
understand
succeeds.
how- I did
Galaxy
not
really
understand how
succeeds
to
at
do that
this,
puzzle on
except
Beach
for
Ball.
when it does not.
Oh, I'm just so incredibly epic. No one can compare. Oh, really?
Okay. Does it mean shape the same?
There is one thing about Super Mario Galaxy that alienates me to no end whenever I replay the game. Whenever we leave a stage, the game asks us whether we want to save.
So, spoiler alert. Yes, we do want to save.
The game asks us the save question, and then two buttons appear, simply saying yes and no.
Whenever this prompt appears, I end up making the exact same mistake. I move the joystick to the right in an attempt to save the game. But even though the buttons look as if we could use the joystick to interact with them, the game does not accept this form of input.
Instead, we're forced to use the pointing function of the Wii mode. This is because all menuing in the game, including choosing to leave a level, can only be done by motion controls, even
reasonable
though it
on the
looks as if it could be controlled
which
with
is
joystick. So we
reasonable
hopefully
on
just
the
established that Galaxy is
Wii.
all about intuitively conveying all its different ideas by simply looking at them. Yet looking at the save prompt gives us the completely false first impression on how to use it. So how did something like this happen in a game that is otherwise so careful about those kinds of things? Well, luckily, I know
I would never make that
exactly
mistake
what happened here.
That's where Clanker went.
Oh, don't mind me. You know, I'm just hammering my tinfoil hat into the wall to hammer home that not everything I say in these videos is meant to be taken at face value and is often a bit speculative. Please just go on.
In 2006, Nintendo took a huge gamble. Their previous console, the GameCube, ended up being a failure.
I
At this
love
point in history,
Wind
the
Waker
company is
Senior.
basically on Pikachu life support. Their next console needs to be an absolute hit. Meanwhile, Sony and Microsoft are fighting over whose next console has the better hardware. You know, has the Xbox 360 the more powerful processor? Is the PS3 more likely to provide steady
Basically, Xbox and PS. If you're a PlayStation and Xbox fan, basically both of those just we have good graphics. Come play our games that are duplicates of our other games, and then the actual good titles are made by the games that have nothing to do with that company and just put their games on that company. For example, like Konami's Resident Evil, that was not officially made by PlayStation or Xbox. They just put it on their console. And you can play them somewhere else, so there's no reason to buy their hardware, except for it just looks good.
60 frames per second while maintaining a breathtakingly crisp resolution of 720p, and most importantly, which console has the more silent cooling solution? And Nintendo? Well, Nintendo says Fireflower graphics 480p are more than enough pixels. Screw the processor. What the market really wants is a remote controller that acts as a pointing device with only a bunch of buttons and a second separate add-on in case we ever need a joystick again. And to everyone's surprise, Nintendo ended up making the correct call. But back then, well, let's say back then, Nintendo's vision wasn't that obvious to understand for the average consumer. It is critical for the success of the Wii that people understand all the cool and unique use cases of the Wii mode as fast as possible. At the same time, Super Mario Galaxy has already been in development for a while. After the release of Mario Galaxy, its producer, Yoshiaki Koizumi, gave two really interesting interviews, one to IGN and one to Wired, where he chatted a bit about the development of the game. In those interviews, we learned a bunch of interesting things. Koizumi, for example, was thinking that Galaxy would be a GameCube game at the beginning of development. He hadn't even heard of the Wii by then. He talks about how the team learned about the Wii's unique motion controls and that Iwata was at least hoping for them to be finished with the game for the launch of the Wii.
So the thing is, games aren't developed in a vacuum. You know, there's always a development team on the one side that hopefully tries to produce the best game they're capable of making, while on the other side there's the company Nintendo that follows some long-term strategies. And sometimes those strategies are simply in conflict with the vision of the poor dev team.
So again, I have absolutely nothing to back this up, but what I believe happened is that Nintendo's management one day told the development team about the Wiimote, that it is critical for the long-term success of the company that people understand all its unique use cases, and since Mario is one of their most important and most popular franchises, they should please just show off every unique feature of the Wiimote at least once in the game. According to my little conspiracy, the team then sat down and designed one minigame where we served that showcases the tilt controls. They designed the ball gimmick stages to show off the Wii's accelerometer. They designed the stages that are built around blowing Mario around while he's entrapped in a bubble. They come up with the star bits as a gameplay mechanic, and they remove, maybe against their own better judgment, the ability to save using the joystick, because part of Galaxy's creative vision is it now to be a showcase of the Wiimote.
Again, there's a reason I just hammered my own tinfoil hat into the wall. But, you know, I just can't help myself.
A couple of the motion control gimmicks just feel forced and tacked onto me. Galaxy is this game that usually so effortlessly introduces all of its ideas, and then reach the surfing stage, and it starts with a 1 minute long tutorial on how to use the Wiimote correctly. So is Galaxy a worse game because it makes heavy and sometimes maybe even a bit forced use of the motion control features of the Wiimote? Well, surprisingly no. The team did a wonderful job in how they added the motion control gimmicks. Some of their uses, like the web catapult thingy or the blue stars, actually are completely in line with how the rest of the game is designed and add tons of cool variation to an already incredibly varied game, while the more clunky motion control gimmicks, like the manta surfing or the ball rolling, are saved for one-off minigames that offer a welcome break to Galaxy's usual gameplay. Just to be clear here, when suggesting that there might have been corporate pressure to show off the Wiimote in Galaxy, I don't mean that this is necessarily a bad thing. It's more like this kind of thing is a thing, and Galaxy is a great example that stuff like that doesn't always have to be bad. If a competent team is given reasonable directions, and that can actually end up being a great success. Galaxy ended up being a great success, and so did the Wii. The Wii ended up being Nintendo's best-selling home console up until today. Interestingly enough, the success of the Wii was to a huge part because the console was attractive to people who usually wouldn't consider themselves gamers. It was a huge success within a more casual audience, and that, to a great part, was because of the unique and intuitive input functionality that the Wiimote provided. Super Mario Galaxy's clever use of the Wiimote ended up being a puzzle piece in the Wii's success story puzzle, exactly as Nintendo's management has hoped. Overall, a wonderful success story. I really like how the beginning of the Skyview Temple in Skyward Sword is designed. This is the very first dungeon in the game, so one would assume that making it through the first couple of rooms would be really simple. You know, maybe a series of linear rooms introducing the most important dungeon elements, like keys and locked doors and the map and...
Huh? Reacting. So you watch it and then you say something to your reaction. Finishing this video is just like 10 minutes, but I'm also reacting sometimes it should be like maybe 13 minutes or something.
and whatnot, the typical Zelda dungeon fluff. Yet the beginning of the Skyview Temple is nothing like that. Instead, it is a connected set of simple but really clever puzzles that takes place over 3 rooms that all share a puzzle element. There is a stone tablet that contains a small riddle that hints that there is a switch hidden beneath a bridge in the previous room. There are 2 flip switches hidden in the side rooms that we have to find in order to raise the water level in the main hall. We have to figure out how to defeat Skulltalas all on our own. There's a good bunch of backtracking to do, and we have to make our way through the
tutorials.
different rooms really observingly and carefully, because there are a lot of things that are
And
actually
then
easy to
after
miss
the switch.
otherwise. Nothing of this is revolutionary dungeon design, but you know, it is as good as Zelda dungeons usually get. But most importantly, the first rooms in the very first dungeon in Skyward Sword are beautifully crafted in a way that they provide a bit of a challenge to series veterans as well as to players that play Skyward Sword as their first Zelda game. It's good, it's a bit challenging, and most importantly, it is fun. Yet Skyward Sword is infamous for its insane over-tutorialization and for not trusting the player to even perform the most simple task on their own. Skyward Sword's pacing suffers tremendously from over-explaining everything that happens and from spelling out way more information than any person ever needs. Every little bit of information is repeated over and over again. Link's
There are some times in Zelda where it requires a tutorial. For example, I did not understand how to do in Twilight Princess how to do the fight on Elden Bridge. I was very confused of how to do that, but I don't think you need that much tutorialization, but people say there was a ton in this game.
companion in the game sometimes appears to spoil us the solution to a puzzle before we even see it. Sometimes she appears to repeat the exact same thing someone else just told us, and sometimes she appears to tell us basically nothing at all. The early hours of Skyward Sword are, at least in my humble opinion, really tedious to play just because of this insane over-tutorialization, and it never really goes away. On the one hand, Skyward Sword is willing to build the beginning of its first dungeon in a way that requires really careful exploration and observation in order to not get stuck. Yet on the other hand, the game is so worried that I didn't understand what the huge hedgehog just said, that it repeats the exact same information immediately afterwards again. So here's the thing, I never really understood why Skyward...
Why have that? Why would you ever have that when you could just have him press the A button again next to the enemy to reread the text? What?
Sword is so over-tutorialized, while so many parts of the game are designed to be approachable while still being challenging in this truly beautiful way. That is, I never quite understood it until very recently. But funnily enough, it was replaying Super Mario Galaxy that gave me an idea on what might have been going on behind the curtains here. So here is a conspiracy theory on what may have happened.
The year is 2011. The Occupy Wall Street movement is happily camping in Zuccotti Park, New York. The final Harry Potter movie is running in the cinemas. Minecraft gets fully released. I am still recovering from the shocking news that Kim Kardashian's marriage only lasted for 72 days. And Nintendo is in trouble. The company just forecasted their first annual loss in 30 years. Nintendo might have a huge success in the form of the Wii under their belt, but the public reception for their upcoming console, the Wii U, has been underwhelming so far. And far worse, their new handheld console, the 3DS, just isn't selling. Nintendo is in a really awkward position. The Wii is massively popular with a casual audience, yet this audience just isn't that interested in buying traditional Nintendo games. The highly critically acclaimed Metroid Prime 3 only sold a lousy 1.4 million copies. Wario Shake It only managed to move a bit over 1 million copies, and even Super Paper Mario only sold a bit over 4 million.
That game is understandable.
But meanwhile, strange games are suddenly seeing insane sales numbers. A weird party game, fittingly named Wii Party, ships over 9 million units. Link's Crossbow Training moves almost 6 million copies. And strangest of all, gamers apparently decided that sitting in front of a couch all day is not what they want to do anymore. In droves, they buy a strange fitness game called Wii Fit. Wii Fit sells far over 20 million copies. While Nintendo is successful at selling their consoles to people that usually don't buy video games, Nintendo has real trouble to actually sell them their classic games. Even worse, the golden days of the Wii are coming to an end. The next generation of consoles is about to release, and it is critical for Nintendo to transform that casual crowd that loves to do push-ups on a Wii Fit board into actual long-time fans of their franchises. The clock is ticking against them, but they have one final high-profile release left that may get a couple of those people to finally stop doing push-ups and to start to play Zelda games like a real Nintendo fan would do. Skyward Sword needs to be the perfect Zelda game for people who never played a Zelda game before. And at least, according to my little conspiracy theory, this is the moment disaster struck. So here's the thing. The over-explaining in Skyward Sword is an incredibly obvious issue. I am not the first person to notice this, and I'm definitely not the last one. But this issue is not only easy to spot, it's also really easy to fix. We don't have to add tons of development resources in order to solve this problem. We just have to stop wasting resources into adding tutorials that ultimately make the game worse. But if the problem is easy to see and not terribly expensive to fix, then that means that even though the devs were aware of the problem, they still decided that they want to leave it in the game. The only reason I can see why anyone would want to leave this kind of stuff in the game is because it makes the game more accessible. Not better for everyone, but better for people who never played a Zelda game before. I believe that the management told them to make the game as accessible as possible at a rather advanced point in development. At a point in development where, for example, the first dungeon was already conceptualized.
And thus, we end up with a game that on the one hand is designed to be understood without any lengthy tutorials, while featuring lengthy tutorials on the other hand. Which finally brings us to the point of this silly little video.
So here's a fun paradox about Skyward Sword. The game is less accessible because it tries so hard to be accessible. Getting into Skyward Sword takes forever. The game takes ages until it finally starts to become really fun, and the pacing suffers over its entire runtime. But you know which game is really accessible? A game that we can probably hand over to anyone, and everyone will probably end up having a great time with it, no matter how old or young they are, or how much experience they have with games. Well, surprise, surprise, I'm obviously talking about Super Mario Galaxy. Galaxy is a much more accessible game than Skyward Sword is, and that is to a huge part because Galaxy doesn't forcefully try to be as accessible as possible. Instead, it just tries to be a really well-designed game, and at least in my opinion, that's the trick. Having lengthy text tutorials that walk players over everything in the game over and over again is exactly how not to be fun for everyone. The Topman level is how it is done. The whole stage is built to slowly teach us how the boss is defeated. But it is a ton of fun to play this tutorial, because learning about new gimmicks, mechanics and enemies is part of the game in Galaxy. I honestly believe that there is no such thing as designing for casuals versus experienced players, or designing for kids versus designing for adults. Clever design is easy to understand for people who play tons of games, the same way it is easy to understand for people who rarely play games. And you know, why wouldn't it? Filthy casuals are biologically still the same species as people who belong to the gaming pasta race. The design of the Topman works because it uses real-world knowledge to convey what actions we are able to perform with it. That works for me the same way it works for Grandpa. But slow and tedious text boxes that spell out what to do before we even get to experience the problem via play, well, that stuff is not only tedious for me, it's also tedious for mommy. I believe that during the late Wii days, Nintendo was incredibly worried about how to magically transform their newly found casual customers into lifelong Nintendo gamers. And I believe they picked the wrongest path possible. They started to over-tutorialize games, most notable Skyward Sword, not understanding that hand-holding like that, if anything, makes a game less approachable. The way to make a game more accessible for a casual crowd isn't by plastering the game with tutorials. It's by clever design, it's by designing enemies like the Topmans are designed. It's by using clever level design, as we can see in the beginning of the Skyview Temple. It's by pacing games in a way that they grab our attention fast, and it is by being willing to balance a game around a reasonable level of challenge. All things that Nintendo became afraid of for a while.
I'm really focused on using all the tools I can so that we spend every second possible on product. Brex simplifies how I manage my cash flow, which really allows me to focus on building our community and creating better products for our customers.
So how does the story end? You know, was Nintendo able to carry over their casual audience to their next console, and was Skyward Sword able to reach those people?
Well, no. The Wii U famously failed to reach the mainstream audience of the Wii, while also struggling to reach the more hardcore crowd. Even though I personally really like the Wii U,
Okay, well, the game is, the video is basically over. I hope you all enjoyed the stream. A lot of people probably mostly just left and stuff like that quickly, so I don't really care. So I'll see you guys in the next stream. Later.